No, don't give it to me.
Good morning, all. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Clark, myself, my city commissioners, city manager Madrid, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's meeting, March 13th, 2019. It is now 9 a.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Here.
Honorable Jackie Clark.
Here.
Honorable Ralph Heschler.
Here.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Here.
Honorable George Shigetti.
Here.
And Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item number B2, silent meditation. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to join me in 15 seconds of silent meditation, keeping those people that have been hit by our severe weather in Dexter and by the tornadoes and stuff, keep them in your thoughts and prayers this morning. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is item B3, Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Baca, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item B4, the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted, or are there any changes?
Mayor Whitehead, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as submitted for March 13th, 2019.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for March 13, 2019 as submitted. Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this morning is item C, comments from the public. I ask that if you have any comments, if there are any comments from the public, that you approach the podium, give your name, address, any documentation that needs to be distributed to the commission, please put it in the little black box next to the podium. Remember our 3-minute rule. First one, anyone? Come on.
You want to go first? Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mayor. Ron Pecoric, TRC. I live on the river, and there's a street across the river, Turtleback Road. And on the weekends, off-road vehicles drive up and down that. It is a city street. I don't know if it's posted, but a city street is 25 miles an hour. I'm wondering who's supposed to be patrolling that street when these off-road vehicles are doing, I don't know, somewhere 40, 60 miles an hour. Should that be looked at? That's a question. Last commissioner meeting, y'all voted 7 people in to put on different boards. There was a couple of people here that were here for that meeting that were put on boards. When I volunteered and put my application for my 2nd term on the Public Utility Advisory Board, I was here and I was asked to come up to this podium and be asked questions by you all. I want to know, none of those other people were brought up to the podium and asked questions. Why was I singled out to come up to this podium for y'all to ask questions of me on a 2nd term that I volunteered for? That's a legitimate question, and I appreciate an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Fenn, 316 North Foch, Truth or Consequences. A lot of things to talk about today, but I haven't got very much time. So we'll talk about my annual report on the performance of our solar farm, which I just received the information on. So this year, our loss on the solar farm for the power that we buy for city buildings amounts to $16,055 instead of the $31,000 that was promised us as a savings. Added together, that's about a $47,000 loss. So far, in this 4-year of the 25-year contract, we have lost $172,000 compared to the rate given to Deming and Silver City by the same company. Why are we paying more? Does it cost more to transport solar energy to Truth or Consequences than it does to Deming or Silver City? This was a horrible contract that was made by Mr. Fuentes, but signed by Sandra Whitehead. We are slated to lose over the 25 years over $2 million compared to these other two cities. Over $2 million for electricity that the city uses and charges itself a lower rate than they pay for it. Who picks up the balance? I'll give you a guess, me and you. Okay. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is Spaceport America. Last month they had all of 30 tourists come from Truth or Consequences from our Spaceport Visitor Center. It earned the Spaceport $146. That's what Spaceport got for that. The city got $0 again. I attended the last board meeting at the Spaceport, which was the 28th of February, and the meeting where we used to have a meeting in the Civic Center with 100 and some people showing up. I was the only member of the public, and there were only 4 members of the at the Spaceport meeting.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Ron. Do we have any further public comment this morning? Any further public comment? Hearing none, we're going to move on to our next item, which was item D, response to public comment. Do we have any response this morning to public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to our next item, item E. E1 is presentations. We have E1, presentation to former Mayor Steve Green and official placing of mayor's plaque on the wall. I don't see him in the audience, so we will just move on to the next item and hope he gets here soon. Item E2, presentation of certificates of appreciation from Mayor Whitehead. This morning I have 2 certificates of appreciation. One is for Angela Torres. I will read the certificate of appreciation. Certificate of appreciation presented to Angela Torres with our sincere appreciation and recognition of your involvement and dedication while serving as acting city clerk. Your tireless efforts and continued dedication during the many issues were evident, and we commend you and want to make sure you know your actions do not go unnoticed. Dated this 13th day of March 2019, signed by City Manager Morris Madrid and myself as mayor, attested by our city clerk Renee Canton. I will give that to you in just a second, okay? The next certificate of appreciation I have for Renee Canton. Renee, can you get up there with Angela, please? This certificate is presented to Renee Canton with our sincerest appreciation and recognition of your involvement and dedication while serving as interim city manager. Your tireless efforts and continued dedication during the many issues were evident, and we commend you and want to make sure you know your actions do not go unnoticed. Dated this 13th day of March 2019, signed by Manager Morris Madrid, myself as mayor, and Angela Torres as the deputy clerk. Congratulations, ladies. all in here?
Squeezed together? One is all in here. I like backing up, I'll stand right behind their head.
Almost got everybody standing in tippy toes? Thank you. Again, ladies, thank you.
Congratulations. Well deserved.
I have to say, during the time that these two ladies served as interims, they did an outstanding job. We had a special election that we had to get ready for. Renee was handed a whole platter of things about the city, and she took care of them without any issues and any problems, and again, thank you. All right, our next presentation is E3, Presentation of Certificate of Appreciation for Lieutenant Baker, Monty Bell, and Jamie Sweeney for Shop with the Cop. These will be presented by Randall Aragon, Chief of Police, and myself as the mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, Renee. I'll just read, I'm going to read them off right now real quick. This is a certificate of commendation presented to Lieutenant Eric Baker. Lieutenant, for your admirable leadership relating to December 2018 Shop with a Cop initiative that raised $8,000 to purchase Christmas gifts for approximately 70 community youth who were paired off with 10 officers from 3 law enforcement agencies, signed by the City Manager, Morris Madrid, and myself, Randall Aragon. Let me mention this, she was the leader of this project, and you know, I was there, I was one of those officers walking around with these children, and you wouldn't believe how happy these kids were to get $100 to go shopping in Walmart. Of course, there was a caveat that they have to buy some clothes that the parents required, but this was great. And Lieutenant, I want to thank you for your leadership. And this has been going on about 8 years. 8 years. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And she was the leader for the pack, and assisting her was administrative assistant, my administrative assistant, Maribel Dalrymple. Maribel, for your admirable coordinated effort relating to the December 2018 Shop with a Cop initiative that raised $8,000 to purchase Christmas gifts for approximately 70 community youth who were paired off with 10 officers from 3 law enforcement agencies, signed by the City Manager and myself. Maribel, congratulations. And finally, the third part of this triangle, Jamie, presented to Administrative Assistant Jamie Sweeney, again, for your admirable coordinated effort relating to the December 2018 Shop with a Cop initiative that raised $8,000 to purchase Christmas gifts for approximately 70 community youth who were paired off with 10 officers from 3 law enforcement agencies, signed by the City Manager and myself. You know, for the whole time I've been here, they worked on this project, and washing cars, getting money from everywhere, and I must say I do thank you for that. Mayor, would you say anything?
Yes, I also have certificates of appreciation, and let me read those off. I have a certificate of appreciation presented to Lieutenant Erica Baker, presented to Maribel Dalrymple, and presented to Jamie Sweeney. We are sincere, with our sincerest appreciation and recognition of your involvement and dedication in the planning and preparation of the Shop with the Cop program. We thank you for being a part of such a successful program. We commend you, and your actions do not go unnoticed. Dated this 13th day of March 2019, signed by City Manager Morris Madrid, myself as the mayor, and Renee Canton as our city clerk. Congratulations, ladies. You guys do a great job. Erica, and Mondell, and Miss Sweeney. Get with them again? Come on, Chief, you're part of this program too. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. We still have no Steve Green this morning, so at this time, we're going to move on to item F. F is the consent calendar, which consists of 4 items.
We have Sandra.
Oh, sorry. I missed it. Okay, we have, item E4, presentation of Tier C PD 2018 annual report. Randall Aragon, Police Chief.
Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager Renee, we're gonna put, yeah, there it is. This is our first annual report debut, so I thought we needed to show what we're doing at the police department that's significant. And there's got a picture going down, Renee. There you go. That's our new building, thanks to David Johnson and his craftsmen. And looks pretty good. Looks a lot better than it used to. And going down, Renee. This is our the cover letter. I broke the report into 5 sections: the mission statements, significant accomplishments, crime stats, our organizational chart, and finally the animal shelter and animal control operations. By the way, the animal shelter and control operations, there were some mistakes. We have a computer application called Shelter Pro, and since this was published, there have been some mistakes. I'm going to redo that section, and when we put this on the website, number 5, that section is going to be redone completely, and it's going to show different stats. So I do want to mention that. Okay, in my cover letter, you see that it's incredible. Our crime rate is really down, 54% for violent crime, and 26% for the property crime. Crime rate is based on, you take the number of types of crimes, you divide it by the population, you multiply it by 100,000, you end up getting crime rate per 100,000 population. So we can compare ourselves against, believe it or not, New York City, Las Cruces, doesn't matter the size. So that's how they work with crime rates. That's important. My vision, as I mentioned on the cover letter, for the rest of the year is I wish to get us involved with the New Mexico Law Enforcement Accreditation Program, which basically is 219 standards that will make us do the right things right. It'll have a standard, I mean, as simple as this. One standard will say officers that work patrol will wear body armor. That's a standard. And you have to prove that by showing that we have that in our policy, and that they'll probably review that when they come and do an assessment and see that we are wearing body armor when we're working patrol. That's a standard. There's 218 other ones. You see, I've talked about it throughout the year. We need to move from reactive policing, which we do, and many cities do, to preventive policing, which means officers do not just ride around and answer calls for service, write the report, get in the car, and go to the next call. We need to work on preventing that crime from happening in the first place. And it's very simple. Officers need to be trained on techniques on problem solving, and they'll work on that. So therefore, we might bring our crime rate down further, or at least keep it the same. So we need to work on preventive policing, and that's something the officers are going to be trained on. And I've talked to Mr. Madrid. We're going to try to work on some stipends from the GRT, where officers that do a little bit more than just riding around and patrolling, when they're working on preventive stuff, they need to be given some extra, how would you say, salary enhancement, because that is a job that a lot of officers do not do. They just answer calls. Okay, so with that, moving on to, there's our mission statement down there, Renee. And what I like about our mission statement is, go ahead down a little bit more, Renee. Summarized, you'll see where it states, the second part, partner with the community to identify and solve problems, which is preventive policing, community policing. And that's one big issue that we need to work on. Okay, moving to the significant accomplishments throughout the year. It's hard to read, but the nightstick flashlight, when you're a cop, and I've been out there, and at 2 in the afternoon, you don't think you need a flashlight. But when Mary Jane's has a break-in and you run into this building, it's completely dark, it's nice to have something on your side. So, you don't have to run out to your car and get your big old tail light that Commissioner Heschler and I know that is a 10-pound item. You got a flashlight, so this flashlight is a lifesaver. It's on their belt all the time, okay? We moved to body-worn cameras. That was started in 18. Let me tell you something. It makes people do the right things right the first time. That is citizens and officers. That's been proven. When you wear body-worn cameras, people do act better, and so does the officers. And of course, it's a double-edged sword. If we make a mistake, it's going to show that too. I started a weekly radio show, which has been pretty popular. Anything that comes up in the department, or the city manager, or Renee, whatever, I bring it out. And it's 15 minutes of free time given by the Sierra County Sentinel. I love it. I just interviewed Carol Wheeler Monday on the dog park. And I could probably spend 2 hours talking to Carol, but we got down 10 minutes. So it's worked out really good. I'm doing the tips from the chief in the Cobblestone on a monthly basis. They put a little article in there, a little crime bench tip. Our shelter, we've developed, thanks to the commission and the city manager and Renee's assistance. We actually published in September the SOP and also a volunteer handbook. And it's still there. We might make some changes in the near future, but it tells us what to do. As you know, we had a guru come in from the president of the Humane Society of Southwestern New Mexico, Frank Bryce. He came in and did an overview of an audit somewhat of our shelter, and he was very pleased. I was really happy to hear that. We're doing the right things. We're on the right track, and we need to continue to do that. We had a radio communication concerns, some before my time. Worked with the commission and city manager, and of course Tracy. With her help, without her we wouldn't have got there. Anyway, we're looking at. It looks like it was approved a New Mexico Finance Authority loan, hopefully it'd be zero interest, to pay for in-car camera systems and the repeater. We had a dead spot. We had officers that were working that area near Walmart, and they couldn't communicate. It's dead. Well, right now the repeater's working, and we need to keep that going, but we need to actually buy it, which is pretty expensive. But so with $130,000 roughly, that loan's going to help get in-car camera systems and the repeater. By the way, the officers wear the Coban body-worn cameras. We're going to get new WatchGuard cameras. We're going to sell those, and we'll have in-car system. You know, where the officers get out of the vehicle, well, when they're actually stopping a vehicle, right now you can't see what's going on because that camera does not show over the dash. With the in-car camera systems, we can see what a car's doing, and a person gets out of the car before we even get out of the car with our camera on our chest. So, and they'll be synchronized. The WatchGuard body-worn camera and the in-car camera systems will be synchronized. Okay. Shop with the Cop program. We just saw the accommodations that flowed from that. That was great. And let me see if I forgot anything. The Sierra County Beggar Panhandling Coalition. We've talked about that quite a bit. It's working. I went to the Department of Human Services, called the lady who retired. She told me that the beggars are going in there telling her that the money's not out there as much as it used to be, which is good. This is what we wanted. And then recently, after she retired, I talked to another lady, Sarah Salcido, and she said the beggars are going in there telling her that the money's dried up in TRC. Hey, it's working. It's what we want. We want them to go get the right help. We want the money not to support their bad habits, so it's working. I already talked about the animal shelter, and let me see. That's really it. Any questions on that?
Any questions, comments, concerns?
The crime stats, Mayor, coming up the next page. It's you'll see on the far right. I know it's hard to see. You see under 2018 minus 54. That's the violent crime rates down, and the property crime rate's down 26%. At the bottom there, you'll see our calls for service for the year. It's about 126% greater than last year. It went from 4,053 on the left, a little bit to the left, Renee, there you go, to the right, 8976. So we're doing a lot more work. And at the bottom, you see 30. That's the DWIs. By the way, I talked to our key DWI guy, Rafael Marian. I said, we did 30 last year. How many did you do? He said, right on the phone, he said, 21. So he did 71% of our TWIs. Amazing. So keep that going. Our next page, you got our log chart. And that's the way it is right now. And on the last page, you see our animal control figures. I apologize, we're going to fix that. The new thing is right now not to use euthanization rate. They want to use the term save rate, which basically is how many you bring in minus the euthanization. You divide it by how many you brought in and you get a rate. And what it is shows not how many were euthanized, but how many you saved. So if you euthanize 10, I'll be telling you our save rate was 90%. And I'll tell you right now, it's pretty good. But I'll correct that, and Renee will post it on the website. This will be for the public to see, and we'll do this annually. Mayor, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you. Great job. Keep up the good work to you and your staff.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, we still have no Steve Green, so we will move on to F, the consent calendar. The consent calendar consists of F1, accounts payable for February 2019, F2, subrecipient second quarter reports, F3, fire protection fund application, and F4, approve an additional resume for Richard Gutierrez to be added as a potential resident project representative RPR provided by Smith Engineering during the construction of WWTP improvements for Phase 2B, pending USDA-RD concurrence. That was a long title. Do I have a motion? Is anything, do you commissioners would like anything separated, discussed separately?
Mayor, I want to move that we approve the consent calendar as you just presented it.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to present the consent calendar F1234 as noted. Is there any further discussion, comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this morning is item G, ordinance resolutions and zoning. G1, discussion action, resolution number 28, 2018-19, approving the restructure of golf course fees recommended by the Golf Course Advisory Board. Bart River, Golf Course Manager. Come on down.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, Honorable Commissioners, Renee, City Manager. Bart and I flipped a coin, and since I had gathered most of the information with his input, I'm going to make the presentation, and hopefully if there's questions, Bart can help us with any of those. First of all, Commissioner Heckler was at a board meeting, and based on some current concerns from Bart and several individuals playing, there was questions on the fees, and Commissioner Heckler asked the board to look into it and see what we could do. So the board got together with Bart. Bart made several recommendations, and I know he consulted with the Sierra County Men's Golf Association, Tumbleweeds, so we drafted one, and City Manager Mr. Madrid was kind enough to look it over. So we've had quite a bit of input on the resolution. So if I may, I'll go ahead and kind of start kind of in line with the cover letter that I enclosed in your packet. First of all, the numbers were all rounded. Again, the board and even people paying, are like 6 cents. Give me a break, and there was just kind of all this controversy. And so we said, let's just round the numbers and make it simpler for the city, simpler for Bart to provide the necessary documents to finance and maybe make them a little better so that he's not coming back and forth, fixing numbers. Let's see. There were several errors in the resolution that Bart was given by finance that had been carried over. So we tried to catch all those and fix those. And again, some of those errors happened with rounding numbers, and some were just starting with wrong numbers and ending up with wrong numbers. So we tried to correct all those. Basically, starting out with the first fees, we looked at that, and one of the things that Bart was pretty adamant about was trying to eliminate weekends and holidays. In an effort to increase rounds, we felt, in association with Bart, that increased weekends and holiday play kind of restricts those individuals that have limited recreation time to when the family's here to want to go play, the weekends and holidays. And we felt that that was just counterproductive to trying to get more rounds and increase the people coming out, that hopefully we could keep continuing to increase the rounds of golf. Typically other courses do have weekend rates. So our rate kind of ended up being a combination, but it eliminated that weekend and holiday rate again, mostly because we felt it was deterrent to the people we're trying to bring on that are still working and have that limited recreation time. So in that first part, actually I made an error that I'd like to correct. On the 18 holes with a cart, that actually should be $23.96 plus the appropriate tax plus GIF to equal the $27. I assume if you wait till the end for questions, just keep moving, Les. Talk faster. I'm a little nervous, so you'll have to please bear with me. Okay, and then on twilight fees, again, it was confusion on when, where, so we kind of tried to just clarify it and add a little more into the resolution and keep it consistent year after year. So we kind of made the statement of 1 p.m. on non-daylight saving time and 3 p.m. during daylight savings time, and then adjusted those rates based on those times. Moving along the juniors, we used to have a fee for juniors under 14, and a lot of discussions. And again, one of the primary focuses was to try to get people started, and we felt that one of the best ways was to get the juniors under 13. If they can walk for free and play, then it encourages maybe more of the adult supervision, to come along, and again, to encourage, these are the people, again, quite hopefully, that we're hoping are going to continue the sport, a golf course, hopefully our golf course, throughout time. So this was an effort to increase that junior play, which we'd kind of lost over the last couple of years. We were actually able to find a volunteer that volunteered to give free lessons to all juniors under 13. So it's kind of a combo package. We're trying to develop that younger group to bring them up playing golf. I did add under free for the juniors under 13. We did add with adult supervision. I accidentally left that off because I don't have adult supervision. That's probably why I left it off. But there was concerns of just, 13-year-olds being dropped off 13 and younger, and, you know, and expected that somebody was going to babysit them on the course, and so we wanted to clarify that that was still with adult supervision. Now, we didn't say they had to play golf. In other words, they could walk with their child, not play golf, and still supervise, and the junior would still be free. So we're not requiring them to pay a green fee to take their junior out, just that they need adult supervision. Juniors 14 to 18, again, that was real close to what the last appropriation or resolution was. It didn't have a ride in there, so we added the ride in case they were riding with another playing person, that they still were using a cart. And the cart fees still need to be implemented regardless if you're riding a cart, just to help put that fund back into the money to maintain our carts. High school golf team, we recommend that they be free, that the city support the high school, both the boys and girls high school teams, that we support those athletic students, and that was different than in the past. Or to make it more consistent in a resolution that yes, the city's gonna adopt that. We've added a category for men's and women's golf leagues of Sierra County, and that's basically about a $5 discount. And the reason we did that is currently the Tumbleweeds and the Sierra County Men's Golf Association are actually actively bringing in new members. And because they're bringing up new members, we're making up the difference in a $5 off fee for them because we're adding new members. And right now, of course, with the men's league, we're all kind of old, so most of those are retired. They're not the family, you know, they don't have families that are bringing on. But both those particular two associations have contributed with donations to the course to help in various funding projects or beautification type projects. So we felt that that by doing that, we are keeping them a little more alive. Now you'll notice it says men's and women's golf leagues of Sierra County. So even though the Roadrunners don't play there anymore, and Sierra del Rio Men's Golf Association don't play there very often, we included them because we felt that it was the right thing to do. How else do I say it? You know, man up, be the first one to say, no, you're welcome at our course. So that's why it includes all the men's and women's golf associations of Sierra County. And again, like I say, that's about a $5. The range balls and club rental, that was an addition that working with the city finance people, I forgot to mention them, they got involved in helping us draft this resolution. There was no fees prior on a resolution, and that was simply because it had always been under contract, and that was part of the contractor's fees. Now that it's city owned and city run, they wanted us to identify specific fees so they could line item those fees and be able to count for them. Golf cart seat rentals, we pretty much, that's from the old resolution, but it got confusing with 1 seats, 2 seats, kind of yada yada yada, so we just tried to simplify that. 9 holes, $6, 18 holes, $9, and just simplified it. We've tried to do a little bit of analysis based on a bid that we're trying to get for golf cart leases now, and we felt that based on the number of rounds that it would pay for those carts. It was sufficient enough to pay for the carts and maintenance. Again, this is a trial there, but we had some pretty good numbers to go with. The rounds numbers have been dropping drastically the last 3 years, but we did still use the most current rounds to try to make sure that we were indeed paying for the carts and paying for maintenance to the best of our ability and maintaining those carts. So the 6 and 9 we felt covered that adequately. Again, one that we definitely need to kind of keep an eye on. I feel that regardless of keeping our rates artificially low, which is an objective in the whereas, which I thoroughly agree with, we still have to pay for those cards. And so that one needs to be kind of monitored to just see how we're doing with that from the city standpoint. From there on down, this resolution mirrors the last resolution that was in effect. However, it corrected several mistakes. So that was kind of the basically only difference between the current resolution and this resolution, from golf cart leases all the way through membership fees, except that we fixed some real obvious errors that were in the last resolution. And again, I do have one more change under the membership fees. Family at 2, that number shows 388. It should be 383. Calculator light wasn't right. I couldn't tell the difference between a 3 and an 8. So those 3 changes, and so yeah, Bart and I'll stand open for any questions or concerns.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, concerns, comments?
I only have one question, and one comment, that is, it seems that you've done an awful lot of work trying to do the research on this and trying to compare with other municipal golf courses to make sure that, one, we're not over, because I looked at a couple of them, but 2, that we're kind of in the fair department, and I appreciate that. The other question is to Commissioner Heschler. I know that you've probably spent some time with this also, and are you comfortable with these?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
think Mr. River, Mr. Ford, city manager, all ought to be commended for their hard work in this thing. Everybody was really dedicated. Everything that's in this resolution right now, or this proposal for you right now, is everything that we discussed, and I'm very happy with it. Most significantly, making sure that our men's and ladies leagues get represented and they can play. We want to increase the amount of rounds that are played at that course, and I think you've got the mechanism here in order to do that. And I really appreciate you taking care of our youth. You know, without the kids coming out and playing down in the future, that golf course may not have much of a future. So this, it really is encouraging for everybody. So thank you very much for your hard work.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, if I may, I'd like to again reiterate that the attitude at the course has been outstanding since the city's taken it over. Number one, I have to credit your city manager, Mr. Madrid. He came out, spent time. Here, I'll go slap him too. But the whole attitude totally changed in January. And Bart's an excellent people person. And now he's gotten more volunteers coming out of the woodwork that have skills that we didn't even know and been playing with us for 5 years, never said a word. Now all of a sudden they're willing to contribute, they're willing to spend extra time, and it's absolutely phenomenal. If this course fails, it is absolutely not your city manager's fault or Bart's. There's just absolutely no reason that I think we can make Mr. Madrid look good and the commissioners look good and the city be proud once again of this golf course. I'm very optimistic that things are just looking so good. It's kind of like, how can we not succeed? We shall see, but the attitude at the course, we're seeing higher numbers already, which I think has been reflected in some of the paperwork that Bart's been turning in, and it's amazing that only in 2 months we're seeing people out there we hadn't seen. I mean, I understand it could be partly the winter people. I don't know if snowbirds is an appropriate term. Can I use that? And I mean, so there may be some other varying factors. We've had some excellent weather for winter, not every day. So those are obviously contributing factors too. But I think it still indicates a trend that I think is going to continue.
Thank you. I've heard some great comments regarding from players that the golf course is really, really improving, and they're really happy with the management. I hear that a lot. Thank you.
Just have one more question, gentlemen, and that is, how is the course itself progressing? Are you guys happy with the progress that the course is making? And what else does the city need to do, and where are we in that regards?
We've discussed this at length, and and you've heard from me before that ever since I've been on the board, my number one priority has been playability. Now, I understand there's contract requirements and selling pop and yada, 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 but playability has always been my personal priority and probably a driving force with the board. We've always keep discussing playability. If you want more rounds, you gotta have playability. You know, a nice clubhouse, yeah, that's nice, but it's the course, the playability of the course that increases those rounds. Playability has gone up drastically. It's a rough time of year to really show it, but those of us that have been watching it, you know, over time can see those differences. The major issue right now with playability is the same issue that back in 13 when I got on the board and with contractors before was the quality of our water supply, the effluent water. That's been an issue for the last 16 years. It continues to be an issue. Clogged sprinklers are a huge issue. So with playability as the background, I would have to say still water distribution is our number one problem. So again, working with the city, you know, we're hoping to get the sulfur burner. Quite frankly, that's not going to totally resolve everything. We're working on getting that filter in place on the pump itself. In our opinion, if we get the sulfur treat burning and we get this filter and the filter that's inside the tank, the pond, that it will so drastically reduce the maintenance on sprinkler heads that now Bart and his volunteers and employees can spend time really grooming the course instead of the number of man hours used to clean sprinkler heads is phenomenal. I can go back to advisory board meetings to the commission for 20 years saying how much it costs them in extra manpower to maintain the sprinkler heads. And it's just, it's just so much work that other things, the mowing, you know, the fertilizing on time, so many things get put back because that's the highest priority and it's been going on forever. So in my opinion, it's still that water distribution, which affects our playability. But water distribution is right now the highest priority. I don't know if you're aware, but working with the city manager in Bart, we're still trying to put on a Fiesta tournament, and that'll be the first one in 4 years. So we're really hoping that we can resolve some issues, but we also realize that, and hope you do too, this is a long road to get back to where that course had been after 3 years of not the best management. That put us back a lot, and no improvements on the filtration. I mean, it was dropped because it wasn't being pushed, and I'll take a hit on that from the advisory board that we didn't keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But it's certainly come along. We're using a little more fresh water, some better techniques, focusing on greens right now, and our hope is that at least from 150 in, you know, we'll have at least that many sprinklers working good for this Fiesta tournament. We're planning it the weekend before Fiesta weekend, which is typically when it had been. We're not quite ready for a 2-day tournament, so it'll be a 1-day scramble, is what the Fiesta tournament board is recommending. But I'm excited that, you know, good, bad, or different, I still think it makes the city look good that the city is doing things that trying. You know, sometimes you hear trying isn't good enough, but I think in this case, trying is essential to make both, again, the city manager and the commissioners look good. We're trying a lot of things, and we're hoping it'll show good for the whole city and all the people, you know, the whole community will be proud of that course again, that we're doing things. Again, it takes time, and we wanted to get started early because we don't have the experience on doing tournaments, and we all decided, you know, let's do this one. We're really not ready, but we do this one, we're going to learn an awful lot, and so that we can hopefully progressively every year get better and better at that.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. Manager Madrid, questions, comments,
One,
concerns?
one comment, Mayor. I want to kind of turn this around and give credit to your community. I have never seen a group of people that will bring you an issue, asking for support and a solution, and then turn around and solve it with you, instead of just having a handout. These people have all gotten their hands dirty and done amazing things over at the course, and I know it's just the beginning. And the commitment that the golfing community has is what's making the golf course better. Sure, you know, we have the budget, we have the resources, but that's minimal compared to the effort that group out at the golf course has undertaken, and they deserve all the credit.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
No, thank you.
All right, I stand for a motion to
Mayor.
approve resolution number 28, 2018, 2019.
Mayor, I'll make that motion. I make a motion to approve the resolution 28, 2018, 2019, approving the restructure of the golf course fees recommended by the Golf Course Advisory Board, Bart River and Rest of Four. And I'd also like to make a special mention that I do appreciate Manager Madrid's efforts, that you really have stepped up to the plate, and that you do know how to work with people, and I really appreciate that an awful lot. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 28, 2018-19, as noted by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Is there any further discussion, questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none.
May I ask one? Does that include the 3 changes I had to make?
Whatever you did,
Okay, whatever I presented next.
whatever you
With,
did.
with
Yeah, the
the,
resolution speaks for itself, whatever's in there is what we're, yeah.
right.
what we're approving.
But I think he does make a good point that you should include the 3
The creek,
Then
yeah.
I'll,
Yeah, he made some corrections.
then I'll amend my motion to include the 3 changes that you've made.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clark. Is that a second, Tom?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I have a motion and a second on the amended amendment to include the 3 corrections as noted by Lester Four. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Heschler.
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Yes.
Honorable George Segedi.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. The next item on
Thank
our
you.
agenda thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item G2, discussion action, resolution number 29, 2018-2019, declaring surplus property for the March 23rd, 2019 auction. Renee Canton, our city clerk.
Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, if you'll forgive me, I'll just present from here. This is our next upcoming auction for March 23rd, and we have a few, as you can see from the list, items from different departments that have been presented to declare as surplus property and include in the March election. I can go over those with you if you wish. Otherwise, I will just open it up for any questions. I do want to call your attention to one item, which is under the police department, the old-fashioned camera. That old-fashioned camera is the camera I may have mentioned in a previous meeting, which they had as evidence, I believe. And it's one of the old type that you put a cover over your head. So we have gotten with Marilyn from the museum, and they would love to have that. So we'll still declare it as surplus, but that particular piece we'd like to transfer to the museum. With that, I'll open it for any questions you may have.
Thank you.
That affects an anti-donation.
Not for the museum, as long as we declare it as surplus property.
We can go ahead and donate it to a nonprofit.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm in favor of the resolution. It's our standard form that we use, and it basically tracks the language of 3-54-2, and I'm in favor of approving the resolution. I was discussing with Deputy Clerk Torres that there may be a question I have regarding the publication process, but that's something we can address separately. It doesn't affect the resolution, so I'm in favor of going forward.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, comments, concerns from the commission? Manager Madrid.
Recommend your approval, Mayor.
Thank you. I stand for a motion to approve resolution number 29, 2018, 2019.
Mayor, I'll make that motion to approve resolution number 29, 2018, 2019, declaring surplus property for March 23rd, 2019 auction with the donation of a piece of equipment to the museum.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 29, 2018, 2019, as noted by Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Is there any further discussion, questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Hessler.
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Yes.
Honorable George Segretti.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this morning is item H, unfinished business. H1, discussion action, drinking water state revolving fund award commitment, DW 4794, Tracy Burnett, our grant projects coordinator and zoning official.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. You have before you the offer from the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund. This was an application we submitted for just over $1.2 million. This loan fund, we would be using the funds for replacement of 4 water lines that were identified within our asset management plan as a high risk, as well as identified in our design analysis report. The streets would be Marshall Street from Steel Street to Platinum Street, North Pershing Street from Main Avenue to 2nd Avenue, East 2nd Avenue from Pershing Street to Silver Street, and Sierra Vista Drive from 6th Avenue to 9th Street. You might note on the design analysis report that I included in your packet, one of those water lines was installed in 1947, so I think we're past time for replacement of that. Within the offer from the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund, they are offering 50%, $600,000 principal forgiveness. And I have gone over this loan offer with Manager Madrid, as well as our water wastewater department, and even managed to briefly update our new water wastewater director as well. This time I'll stand for any questions.
Do we have any questions, comments, concerns? Manager Madrid.
Mayor, Commissioners, to put it simply, I think the New Mexico Finance Authority is making an offer that we can't refuse. This is a simple one. This is a good opportunity.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion.
Mayor Whitehead, I'd like to move that we approve the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Award Commitment, DW-4794, as presented by Tracy Burnett, our Grants Projects Coordinator.
And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund as noted by Commissioner Hessler. Is there any further discussions, questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item H2, discussion action, approval of the amended guidelines as recommended by the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board. Renee Canton, City Clerk Treasurer.
Madam Mayor, Commissioners, as was brought to you at the last meeting, the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board has reviewed the guidelines to give a stricter rules for those who may be late in their reporting, those who may be late in filing their applications and such. At the last meeting, one of the questions was as to whether we were paying the vendors directly for some of the organizations, and in fact, in working with Tammy Gardner, who's receiving the invoices and requests from the Lodgers Tax organizations and recipients, that we are in fact paying some vendors for some of those. In her research, and she can correct me if I speak incorrectly, most of those were like the co-op grant types where we pay operations and such, correct? Those were the ones we basically pay the vendors directly instead of the organizations. But that in fact, as per your request from the previous meeting, has been done. So if you would like me to go over the changes they're requesting in more detail, I could.
Thank you. Is there any questions, comments, concerns? Manager Madrid.
Mayor, Commissioners, I think I'm recommending moving forward with approving these. I think that we need to take this a step further, and I'll work with Tammy closely on trying to develop criteria for who we pay directly and who we don't. I don't think we have a methodology for that, and I think we need one. So we'll work on that moving forward.
Thank you. I stand for a motion.
Mayor White, I'd like to move that we approve the amended guidelines as recommended by Lodgers Tax Advisory Board and presented by Renee Campbell.
Do I have a second?
I will second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the amended guidelines as noted by Renee Canton, our city clerk treasurer. Is there any further questions, comments, discussion?
I have a question, Mayor. Clerk Canton or Manager Madrid, are you aware, my understanding, and I haven't got it validated, but that the state legislature has put into effect that lodger's tax now will be required on places that only have one overnight at their location, as opposed to the exemption of 3.
Mr. Mayor, City Manager, if you don't mind, I can respond to that.
Please, because I'm not aware of it.
That was placed on the rocket docket, and it's signed by the governor, so we can't proceed with any other Airbnbs that, we only had 2 that were eligible. We can proceed with the other 24 and any additional from then.
Okay.
To start with charging. Most of them that we did get, we already got to register the business at least. So all we have to do is proceed with the other portion that we had done with the application. So yes, it's in effect, signed by the governor, and we can proceed, and they don't need 3 accommodation rooms any longer.
Yeah, so there's not just Airbnbs, but there are a couple of small little, 2 and 3 unit places too, so there's some extra available revenue. And thank you, Manager Madrid, for stating that you will go forward with looking at some of the issues that I brought up at the last meeting.
Yes.
So I appreciate that.
Thank
So
you.
that being said, Mayor, I have no problem with this.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Clark. I have a motion and a second to approve the amended guidelines. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is item H3, discussion possible action, live, work in downtown buildings. Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Mayor, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to ask Linda to come up here and be available for discussion with me.
That's fabulous. I don't know about that.
So this particular issue came up many, many months ago, and I've offered to follow through with it. And this is a question about living and working in downtown buildings. And I've spoken to a few people that own buildings downtown and that rent buildings downtown, and are aware, obviously, of our commission that has given special use permits to 2 of the buildings downtown to live and work. And there's several issues that come up. It's like, can you live and be in an open business in the front? How many days do you do that? What happens if the people travel and they're closed for 4 months? Do they need to sublet out the business? Is it okay to close it? How many days? What kind of special requirements are there? And can we mandate on owners how they run their businesses if they buy a commercial building? And there is no real conclusion right now. So one of the things that I was thinking, and that I'm going to ask Linda to pipe in, is that maybe it would be a good idea to gather up a lot of owners of the downtown places and a lot of the tenants and get them together kind of like in a town hall meeting, Mayor, and get their input, how they feel about how they want their downtown to be looking, including, us obviously and the manager. But I'm thinking that, for us to go ahead and mandate something without getting some better input from a variety of people is probably not a good idea to do something commission only. I really believe that we need to have public input on this particular concept, but this is something that's been going on since the mid-2000s, so this is a subject matter that's been around for a decade. Okay, Linda, that's where I close.
Okay, so I just really want to say having people live in your downtown is a good thing. Number one, that's more eyes on the street. Number two, it helps your local economy because people who live downtown spend money downtown. So we're not looking to kick people out, but we do have 7 vacancies in our downtown right now. And if you think about people coming in and just living there and not opening any kind of storefront, it doesn't really contribute to making the place more economically viable. So, I definitely think it is a concern that we need to figure out, whether that's like a zoning or an ordinance thing is, is something we're going to have to figure out, because I think it's all zoned right now for commercial, and the live work permits, allow people to have kind of a mixed use space. So, yeah, it's definitely important. I think getting people together is a good thing.
Thank you. Attorney Rubin, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Well, right now, and I knew you referenced also in the packets, what's happened in the past was special use permits granted to people. So are you suggesting we want to change procedure about how the ordinance reads, or I'm not sure where you want to go with this?
Well, I'm not really sure either. That's why I'm kind of asking to get, a group of all people together. But the concept is we've given 2 special use permits for living in the buildings, but without any requirement that they need to have an open business. And that was what the previous mayor was bringing up also. And it's come up, I remember 2004, 2005, I think was when this came up the first time. So the concept is if people are just living in the building and the front door is closed all the time, then is it a commercial district or is it a residential district? And how, Attorney Rubin, do we put that in an ordinance? I don't know, but I don't feel that we should put it into any kind of an ordinance yet at the point until we have a really, kind of a real comfortable feel of what we want to have happening downtown. And I agree with Linda that working and living downtown is excellent because people will walk to the grocery store, they walk to the other stores, they, walk to the restaurants and use them as part of their reality, and it's been vibrant in many other big cities. And how we want to move with this one, I think it's important to keep it on the docket.
Right. Could we schedule some kind of town hall meeting with all of the folks that live and work in the downtown area and open it up to everyone, not just them, but make sure that we invite them to see, again, like Mayor Pro Tem Clark said, what do we want our downtown to look like? Again, we don't want just a live-in quarters, we want a business if possible so that it makes our town look viable.
Right.
I guess I'm missing this because I'm looking at the minutes that were attached, and it does talk about the 2 special use permits that are granted, but it does, I would think it was contemplated they would continue, so it would be able to work arrangements.
But there was nothing that we mandated. we asked a question, if I remember correctly. We asked them if they were going to be open, and they said, yeah, 3 or 4 days a week, that there was nothing that we could mandate to them
Right.
to do that, so they could be open or they couldn't be open, is what I understood, Attorney Rubin,
And then if
unless
they-
there's something incorrect that I missed.
I thought actually you were mandated, because one thing that the action was taken on Commissioner, one of them was Commissioner Clark moved to approve a special use permit to do a live/work arts cafe on 422 North Broadway, so you did say live/work. Live/work.
Live.
And then basically, and then similarly, for the property at 520 North Broadway, it does say live/work retail space. That was always my understanding, it was going to be a live-work arrangement.
Right, I know
Or a
that.
live-work arrangement.
I like the live work really, but it doesn't say that, I mean, that is so open-ended that they could be, open 1 day a year.
And still live in
And
the
still
facility.
live in that facility. That's the
That may be
issue.
the trick, and that may be what we need to find out as to what we mean by a live-work relationship.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Linda?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. Mayor, then that, would you mind if we
I
did something
would,
like
I
that?
would like for that to happen, and the sooner the better, that way we can kind of get this into play and into place and go forward and make our town.
Right, and if we've got 7 vacancies already downtown, as Ms. DiMarino is telling us, then, you know, we start filling them up without any kind of understanding of what's going to be going on in them, then we're doing, I don't know.
Real quick, while we're talking about vacancies, Main Street's now keeping a vacancy database, so if you know of anybody looking for buildings, you can send them to us.
Awesome.
Questions, comments, concerns, commissioners?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, just a comment. So what I think we're after is, we want to clearly define the parameters of a person being able to live and work downtown, including if they move downtown, how soon they'll have their business open, how many hours a week they're going to have their business open. If their business closes, how long do they have to vacate, or should they vacate? So those are some clear parameters that we need to establish, and maybe through
Exactly.
a meeting
Right.
like you propose, we can at least get the guidelines set out and then present that to the commission.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good process.
Would Main Street be able to call that meeting, or
Sure.
Mayor, would you rather call that meeting, or
I-
would
I
you work
think
with
that
Main Street
I would work
together?
with Main Street. I think
Okay.
Main Street could call that meeting since
We could do it
you-
together.
Right, and we could work together. Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Sure.
you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Attorney.
Any further questions, comments, discussions? Manager Madrid, comments? No?
No, I think, our role will be to listen and collect and try and hopefully get some guidelines as to what, Commissioner Hessler said, and how can we define the parameters? And maybe that would be the first step, and at least have that discussion. That's my understanding. Am I off base?
No,
You're
No.
right on.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item I-1, under new business, discussion action, 2019 Walmart Community Grant Program for the purchase of 4 dash-mounted radar units. Randall Aragon, our police chief.
Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, City Clerk. This is a grant we put in for the latter part of last year. We found out about it. We got $1,250. It required the mayor's approval and sending them a certificate of incorporation. We got $1,250. We bought two computers and another one coming. And this is a $5,000 no-match grant. All it requires is commission's approval and sending the incorporation documents. And we're looking at, we have 6 dash-mounted radar units. They're about $1,250 each. We need 4 more, and this is what we're looking at. I think we can get it because we're applying for it very early in the year, and the Walmart general manager, April Vasquez, said she's going to be looking for it. So that's the basic story.
Thank you, Chief. Questions, comments, concerns, commissioners? Manager Madrid?
Recommend your approval, Mayor.
Thank you. I stand for a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion to apply for the 2019 Walmart Community Grant Program for the purchase of 4 dash-mounted radar units as presented by Police Chief Randall Aragon.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the 2019 Walmart Community Grant Program as noted by Chief Aragon and also as noted by Mayor Pro Tem Green. Excuse me, Clark. Hey, I'm thinking of it, he's on my mind, and I knew it was going to happen. Sorry.
That was good.
Mayor Pro Tem Clark. Any further discussion, questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I knew that was going to happen.
Thank you, Mayor.
Because you call him mayor and him mayor.
Well, just be careful. Okay, the next item on our agenda this morning under new business is item I-2, discussion direction, proper protocol regarding management, personnel, and commission. Mayor Pro Tem Clark.
Yeah, this is one of my pet peeves, and I'm going to ask the manager, and I'm going to ask Attorney Rubin to help me with this one. But for several months, I believe that we've had kind of a little bit of chaos in the way that we communicate throughout the city. And it's been important because a couple of us needed to do that. Now that we have a manager that we kind of think we like, we're not really sure, but he's still here. Just out of kind of the regular protocol that I remember in business is that an employee, if they have an issue, they go to their supervisor. And if the supervisor can't solve the problem, then they go to the city manager. And in our case, it would be great to have a personnel board, but we don't have that. And if the city manager can't solve the issue, then the employee can appeal to the commission. But it's not after it's gone through the steps. And Chief, you can pop in here too if you would like. But that, I think, would make it so that employees know who they're supposed to go to first and know who really is in charge of them. And hopefully it would be add a little more, just some of the comments I heard from employees, I don't know who the boss is. And I think that's really hard for employees. I think it's really hard for morale also. So I'd like us to, as a commission, if somebody comes to me directly, and that's happened before, and then my directive would be, have you talk to your supervisor or have you talk to the manager first? And if I act like that, then I'm also giving credibility to whomever is being employed as a supervisor and who's being employed as my city manager. And I just think out of courtesy that, so I'm asking management, I'm asking supervisors, I'm asking the employees, and I'm asking the commission if they're comfortable with that kind of a scenario, that we don't need to actually necessarily put it in writing, that it's a gentleman and gentlewoman's agreement that this is how we're going to operate. And I think it would be, I really think it's a morale issue, and I think it would be good for personnel if they know exactly where to go.
Well, and I think you're not talking about a formal grievance procedure at this point.
No.
Somebody may just come to you with a question, because I'm always mindful of the fact that at some point, a formal grievance may come to you where you have to actually make a decision. So, you want to be careful about the individual commissioner, if you want to engage in a long discussion with an employee where you may come to you later on. So, yeah, I think you're on the right track. Just refer the employee to the individual you just articulated, and then see how that plays out.
Manager?
Mayor Pro Tem, I realize, I think better than most, how difficult your role is, because I used to be a city councilor. So you have to balance the fact that you were elected to represent your constituents. There's no question about that. With the ethics that goes with not micromanaging, or not getting involved in personnel policies, that's not always easy.
Right.
Sometimes it's harder not to get involved as to get involved. But we all have to maintain our ethical standards. We all have to be consistent. We all have to be efficient. And, you know, I think the two greatest factors with having a staff of so many employees is morale and efficiency. And I think we're all human beings, and we all determine our performance and our well-being based on expectations. I remember the worst thing that I could possibly do when I was younger was disappoint my parents. I didn't want to do that. But I knew what my expectations were. I knew if I got good grades, they'd be happy. I knew if I didn't get in trouble, they'd be happy. It's the same type of thing with city staff. I think we're getting to the point where we're more closely defining our expectations of everyone and eliminating the fear of favorites, that the manager's going to have favorites, or that the elected officials are going to have favorites, or they're going to be unfair because of politics or emotions. Eliminating those things just by the conduct that you're talking about makes a big difference in everybody going home after work thinking, oh, today was an okay day, and I'm not afraid of tomorrow. I know that if I make a mistake, well, I'll have to answer for that mistake, but I know that if I don't make a mistake, I'm going to be okay. And that's a huge, huge factor. And, you know, it's my hope that that part of the work environment is improving. I've seen a difference in attitude among our department heads because I work with them the closest. And to always continue moving in your direction that you described means that we'll always be progressive and we'll always be fair, but we'll always be accountable. And I will be the first one to direct an employee to you if there's an issue that can't be resolved. Without mentioning any names or other information, I've done that once already with an employee that was dissatisfied with some answers that I gave, and they wanted to appeal. And I said, you have my permission. And I gave him that permission. Although allowing that, it may not change the results of an evaluation or a personnel action. It's not good enough to say, well, just because I'm the manager. Anytime I take an action, I tell all the staff this. Anything we talk about in a meeting, anything that we discuss in my conference room, we better be able to talk about it in an open meeting. Unless it has to do with a personnel issue or litigation, just like the Open Meetings Act. But the way that we conduct ourselves should be based on what and why. This is why. We're not picking on anyone, including the general public. When we ask for a fee, when we ask for more information, same thing. It's got to be open, it's got to be ethical, and it's got to follow the rules. And I agree with you 100%. And I appreciate that from the commission, that even with the general public, you know, we hear people complain about different things, but I'll be the first to say, to anyone, you can say, have you talked to the manager? Because my door is always open. Maybe not right this minute, maybe not today, but there isn't anyone that I'll refuse to meet. So that's my position, Commissioner.
Thank you, Manager.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Any other comments, questions?
Yes, I know we've had a lot of turnover lately, especially the senior positions, and yeah, that makes it real confusing for the people when they may not know from one day to the next exactly who they're working for. And I'm hoping as we get people into these key positions, that confusion will eventually go away. But I think that really the most important thing an employee has to know is who their boss is, you know, if they have an issue, who's the first person they need to deal with? And I think anytime we have situations like this, that, the people in a department where there's a sudden vacancy, that they know who to turn to until a replacement is found for their normal boss.
That's a good point, Commissioner Seghetti, and I heard that from a couple of employees too. It's like, I don't know who my boss is. And I think that's extraordinarily important, that right now we say it's, we have a city manager if we don't have a supervisor or department head.
And the city manager should give that direction on who they go to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there were a couple of issues, that I needed to talk to someone about. When we didn't have a wastewater head, there was, who do you take that concern, on our part, who do you take that concern to? Luckily, none of these was, pressing, so I just decided to wait and eventually got everything resolved. But yeah, it's confusing for us also when we have some of these vacancies.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Mayor Pro Tem, I also know that on the same topic, back when Renee was the interim manager, we, the commission, had asked that you and Commissioner Heschler sit in and help her, and you have done so with new manager excuse me, I knew that was going to happen, Manager Madrid. What do you want to touch on that at this time?
I could. I'm confident in our new manager at the moment, because we have gotten more department heads and it hasn't been quite so confusing. Where, it was very confusing when we asked the city clerk Kenton to step into that position. There was much more chaos 4 months ago than there is today. And so I kind of feel that, and Commissioner Heschler, you can pipe in, but I feel like I'm confident backing back a little bit. And if Manager Madrid has questions to ask me, because I got more involved in the city during that period of time, then I'm okay answering your questions. But I think that you haven't asked me many recently, and I appreciate that. So that being said, I don't feel like I need to be in your face all the time.
Commissioner Heschler?
Just a real brief couple comments. Several months ago, we were talking about resurrecting the personnel board. The reason we were talking about it is because we were in chaos, we had some issues, and we needed to address some things. And that talk's kind of gone away. And that makes it even more important now that as commissioners, we take for ourselves a way to come back from the employees, because we are now in the direct line. If there is an issue with an employee, that employee goes to the city manager. If they can't get satisfaction, they don't have a personnel board, they have a city commission. And so I think that's very important to reiterate, and so thank you, Mr. Riffin, for doing that.
Right.
And so I'm happy with the process now, and also I'm very happy in that I haven't seen too many issues or heard too many issues of late. So I think we're heading in the right direction, so things are good.
Thank you. Okay, moving on.
Mayor, if I might interject, as far as the personnel board, I have actually talked to the city manager about that and showed him some documentation. So we have brought it up to take a look at again and haven't let it fall too far behind. And as far as during the interim, I worked very hard to where the employees didn't know who to go to at that point. Unfortunately, most of the time it was me. And I do thank Commissioner Clark and Heschler for their assistance at that point. And still fully behind City Manager Madrid, who's doing an amazing job, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to hear that.
It is.
Nice to hear that. Yes.
One final comment. Having served on the personnel board in the past, for over 5 years, I only heard complaints twice. In the last 3 years as a commissioner, we've only heard complaints once. I'm not so sure we need to go ahead and move forward with a personnel board with that few issues, because it's really hard to keep people on a board when there's no activity. And it's really hard to bone up on a case or a situation or the procedures of a personnel board for one incident every 2 or 3 years. It takes a lot of additional work. So as long as things are going good, I think we should keep the situation as it is and not necessarily go through a process just for the sake of the process.
And I would agree with that. Attorney Rubin is, if we're not involved in the initial issue of an employee, for example, then we do become the appeal board by default, correct? And so it's better that we're not involved in the employee issue until it gets past the point that it can't be handled internally.
Right, I actually would just prefer you have it less to do with the situation as possible until it comes to you formally, through the process.
Right, no, I like that a lot. Thank
Mayor,
you.
one process that I have seen that worked pretty well, and this was at a couple of universities, is that beyond the president of the university, the appeal was not to the Board of Regents, but the process defined the appointment of an independent hearing officer that both sides would agree on. And that would be the first level of appeal. And then after that, then it would be a court action, it would be litigation. But there was no point where the board got to actually decide on a personnel matter unless it involved litigation. So there's other possibilities that could work, and I think especially what I've learned in being from the outside, to me that's been very valuable, because I don't know histories, I don't know people, and I think for a hearing officer that would be very valuable also, because there's no personal ties, there's no political ties, and that would probably put the city on its most solid footing in any action that was taken. What do you think, Jay?
I know. Tell me why. Tell me why you think we should go in that direction. I wasn't very clear.
Well, no, I don't know that we should go in that direction. What I'm saying is there are other options. Let's say an employee wants to appeal a termination.
Right.
Then an independent review of that, just like an independent review of investigation in the police department. The same theory. Someone outside with eyes on the process, just to review the process as an alternative, and there may be other ones.
Well, okay, I see what you're saying. Quite honestly, I really like the way our personnel policy is written right now. Because I think, we already have these safeguards built into it, where you have these extra checks where it goes from, the department head to the city manager to the city commission, and then if the employee still isn't satisfied, there's always a possibility of district court, which hopefully, we can always avoid. But I don't know that an independent outsider really is something you really even need to have. I mean, it's, my thought on it.
She does something to say.
Chief?
But, drifting away.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, having worked in union collective bargainings in cities such as ourselves, some cities I've seen where.
Sorry, I'm not picking you up.
Having worked in 8 cities, that's my way in. There's a lot of merit to what Mr. Madrid's saying. Some cities I've worked at, like our size, it would go to the city manager, and then it would go to district court, because the commissioners or the council members, they're elected, and they might have went to school with the person. That just happens in small cities. So district court is a disinterested party, I guess. So with the city manager's mentioning, a arbitrator has no buy-in. It doesn't know anybody, and then at that point it could go to maybe district court, because when you place it on commissioners or council members, like I said, they might know the person, went to school with them, they're related, and it does make it difficult. So that's my
That's all.
And that's one way to look at it, maybe being cynical, I'm always trying to avoid going to court if I can, you know, and so I like when the commission, that I can give the commissioners advice on due process, et cetera, so that's just, I think it's worked pretty well over the years, so that's how I see it.
Well, maybe just us as a commission with our ethics intact, we could say, I have a conflict with this particular employee because I'm related to this person. So I don't feel confident being part of that discussion. And if it got to the point where all 5 commissioners knew that person too well to be able to make an unbiased decision, then we could say, please go to an arbitrator. Something like that. I mean,
and you know what? I mean,
that could be the commission decision.
There's what the chief has said.
Yeah.
I know other municipalities do that. I'm just commenting, I'm just going from my years of experience here, that it seems to have worked well, the way our crisis system has.
And if we get in a jam, then we'll worry about it then.
Manager Madrid.
You know, I think we've, in the discussion, we've kind of gotten way out into the weeds. Jay is absolutely right. We have a process, we have an ordinance, and it works. And, you know, we can spend way too much time on dealing with exceptions. We have a process for the exceptions. So, anyway, I just wanted to kind of bring us back to where we were.
Thank you, thank you.
So, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to have this discussion out in the open so that we're all kind of playing on the same page.
And nobody appreciates it more than I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go on to the next item on our agenda, which is item J, reports, I'm going to go back to presentations. The first presentation that we were going to do was a presentation to former Mayor Steve Green and officially retiring his picture from City Hall to our Wall of Fame, which we have done. And we also have a very nice plaque here for him, and I will, if Manager Madrid will hand that to me, I will read it, and then we will get this to him. Okay, this is what the plaque looks like.
You gave him a gavel?
His own gavel and his own plaque for his wall. And this says, presented to Stephen Green in appreciation for your service and dedication as Mayor from March 8th of 2016 to December 31st, 2018, Mayor Pro Tem from March 11th, 2014 to March 7th, 2016, and Commissioner from March 11th, 2008 to March 10th, 2014. So this is a plaque that we will gladly get to him for his service and dedication. And we're sorry that and sad that he was not able to be here, but again, we have retired his picture from City Hall to the Wall of Fame. He's right on the top, and then his plaque. Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda this morning is item J, reports. City Manager, do you have a report this morning?
I have a very brief report. I just want to update all of you on, I did have a brief collective meeting, and I met individually with members of our finance department, and I let them know who their interim director is, and I let them know that interim director is me. So I've been meeting with them collectively and individually, doing the approvals and the other things that the finance director would normally do. So that we're holding things together fairly well, and we have advertised for a finance director, so that process is moving. I'm concentrating mainly on the development of next year's proposed budget and reviewing our employee evaluations. The department heads have done a really good job. We had a training for them for the forms that we use and how to actually evaluate the employees, what criteria to use, what characteristics to look at, and they've done a really good job so far. So those are the two areas that have been taking up most of my time. I think it's going to help a lot in the future in determining what our expectations are. And the department heads are having to take a look at that to do the evaluations, the employees are having to take a look at that to understand their evaluations. So that's going really well. We will be not formally hosting, but we will be having the Colonias Infrastructure Board here in town March the 20th. There's a whole list of people applying for money. So we're going to have groups from all over the southern part of the state, both visiting our city and staying overnight, both. I'm going to offer to sponsor their afternoon break and make them welcome, so they'll want to come back here and have their meetings here more often. The last but not least thing that I'd like to do is introduce our new water and wastewater director, Jesse Cole. Jesse, if you would step up. Jesse has the highest level of certifications for both water and wastewater and has experience in dealing with both systems. He knows a lot about our system, and our staff has worked with him before. His first day was Monday, and I think we kind of threw him right into the fire, and he accepted it, and he's doing well. Yes.
Yes,
Would-
putting out fires all across.
Tell
town.
us a little bit about you.
Longtime resident of the area. I have a family member on the Mayor Wall of Fame over here, Mr. Milton Teston. So I have a lot of history here, and I'm really honored to be part of the Truth and Consequences team, and I look forward to progressing in a positive direction for water wastewater. We have a little bit of work to do, but for the most part, everything that I've seen over the last couple of days has been a very impressive run facility, honestly. I'm seeing a lot of work that was put into the record keeping, and the facility itself is in really good condition. Granted, it is an aging infrastructure, but we have made the best of it and made it last well beyond its expected age, or life expectancy. So I'm really impressed with it, and the direction that the commission has given to the water wastewater department has been outstanding. So I look forward to continuing that trend and moving forward in a positive direction.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you.
For accepting the application and coming on board, and I know you can do a fabulous job.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Mayor, I think the two happiest people that we hired, Jesse, are Ruby and Jesus, because I have been depending on them from my first day, and I want to thank them especially for their support, for their honesty, and for their willing to just help me get it done, and in coordination with all the other staff. Ruby, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is Attorney Rubin, do you have a report?
Yes, I wanted to briefly respond to Mr. McCord's comments that he made during the public comment section. He's not in the room right now, but when he was leaving, I did talk to him briefly outside. I told him I was going to mention this, so that way it wouldn't be a surprise. His comments seemed to be that we were singling him out because when he was reapplying that we asked a lot of questions, whereas when we went through the process last meeting appointing people, we did not do that. And I think the difference was that when we did the appointments last week, they were all uncontested appointments. I don't think there was any opposition to anybody who was who was sought to apply. My recollection was when Mr. McCord had done his one for the renewal, I believe there was someone else who actually also had applied for that position. I may be dead wrong about that, but I think there was.
Yeah, there were two applicants.
Right, and that was why we went through the interview process, was the appropriate thing to do. So we don't have a hard and fast rule as to when we require interviews or when we don't. I think it's a case-by-case basis, but I think you do the right thing that, when you do have more than one applicant for one position, an interview with the appropriate thing to do. If it's something that's uncontested, you can use discretion to decide maybe you don't need to. So I don't think there's a problem with what the commission did.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin.
And as I mentioned, again, I'm sorry if the record's not here, but I did talk from outside, and I mentioned I was going to say something about this.
Thank you. And do you have any further
That's
reports?
all, I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay.
And I couldn't wait till the next week or next meeting, but since it happened today, it's fresh in my mind. Decided to get it out with it now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Baca, do you have a report?
I do not, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, do you have a report?
Well, I just have a couple of comments. One, thank you, Attorney Rubin, for talking to Mr. Purcourt, because that was my memory also.
Okay, good.
And I didn't want to say anything because I wasn't exactly sure. But I do remember going through the interview process in that particular position for PUAB. And it makes a lot of sense that if there's more than one person. The other thing is, Jesse, I'm very pleased to meet you. And I'm sure Ruby is very pleased to meet you also. And I've had an experience with this man already. And he's on the ball. And he's very responsible. And you got a good team with Ruby and Jesus and the rest of the outfit. And I'm very grateful that Tracy is finding you money for water. And she loves doing that for whatever reason, I don't know. But maybe I'm making that up. But welcome on board. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Commissioner Heschler?
No report, ma'am.
Commissioner Zaghetti?
Well, yes, I'd like to just mention an incident that makes me feel really good about this town. A week ago, Wednesday morning, we were heading downtown, had just stopped at the corner by the post office to make a left turn up onto Main, and we looked over and there was a man lying on the sidewalk in front of the post office. So as soon as we could, we pulled around the corner and stopped. But by the time I got there, there were already 3 other people, all arriving at the same time, including our animal control officer, who had, driving by, spotted it and had already called in that there was a man in need of assistance. When we got there, he had no pulse, wasn't breathing, was blue in the face. But while us civilians were still sitting there trying to process the information, 2 other officers pulled in. They immediately got to the man, rolled him over, started doing CPR on him, and the ambulance was there almost within another couple of minutes. And they did get a pulse back on him. Unfortunately, the man passed away at the hospital later on. But, when you hear about incidents in cities where people are lying on the ground and people just walk around them and ignore them, the fact that, and it wasn't even easy to see him because they have that big sign for the Old Brick Cafe was right in front of where he was laying, so it was kind of difficult to see. But that so many people noticed it right away, immediately went to his assistance. Then our officers got there, and they knew what to do right away, without hesitation. And that, like I said, unfortunately, he did not survive. But it just makes me feel good to see that the citizens here are concerned about their fellows, and the rapid response we got from our police officers and the ambulance crew there. I said it's sad that he passed away, but I feel good about the way that the people and our officers responded to the situation.
Thank you, Commissioner Zaghetti. And the only report that I have at this time is I would like to thank the city clerk and all the staff that put together the fabulous luncheon last Friday. For all the city employees, I would like to thank all the city employees that showed up for the great dinner and fellowship that we all had. It's nice to see that. We do plan on trying to do this maybe once every other month, if not once a quarter, just so that we can get everybody to know that we appreciate what you do for us, and we all want to get together and have lunch. And so it really turned out well. A lot of fabulous food. If you weren't here, you missed it. So again, thank you, everyone. All right, the next item on our agenda is K, executive session. I have 4 items. I have K1, acquisition and disposal of real property, property near Sierra Vista Hospital pursuant to 1015-1H8. K2, pending litigation, Ashbaugh versus City pursuant to 1015-1H7. K3, threatened litigation, special election pursuant to 1015-1H7. And K4, limited personnel matters, water and wastewater and electric departments pursuant to 1015-1H2. Do I have a motion to approve executive session?
Mayor, I have a question. Commissioner Knopf?
No,
We can make it.
we'll do it when we get in there.
Okay. Never mind.
Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I move that we go into executive session.
And do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session under the items that were noted K through 4. Is there any other discussion, comments, questions? If not, Madam
Can I
Clerk.
take a little potty break?
Yeah, as soon as we do that. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead?
Aye.
Honorable Ralph Eschler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark?
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca?
Yes.
Honorable
No.
George Segedi?
Yes.
Motion carries. We will go into executive session in a few minutes after everyone takes a few-minute break.